image. Okay, I'm recording.
I've been recording for 4.5 minutes.
Nice. Okay, so Code of Honor.
I'll start now.
We're just gonna blast through this.
Yeah, Zach, you got this one,
so we can just be done with it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. No, you know what? No, this is the cold open. No other intro. Just we want to be over with this. That's the whole movie. Okay, ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1.
But you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
Hello. Welcome
Hi.
to Steven Seagal, starring Zachary Weiberg, Aaron Lynch, and Hans Schreiner.
That's me, the second one.
You're introducing us for us now?
Yeah, I'm the host. Welcome. Please come in. Take your shoes off. Sit down. Grab yourself a cold beverage. Don't put your shoes down there. Put your shoes down over there, please. We watched Code of Honor, 2016 American action thriller film. Our first non-Keone Waxman film in a long while, in like 2 months or so. And what I would like to call the room of Steven Seagal movies.
It's rough.
We have talked about, how these movies are bad. I think this is truly this is Birdemic. This is Troll 2. This is The Room. Because this feels like the budget was slashed and slashed and slashed again. And online it says this had a budget of $8 million. I do not believe that. That's $8 million if $7 million went to something else that wasn't the movie.
Yeah.
This is... If you thought these movies were bad, and good on you, you should think these movies are bad. We are in... there is a shit you can feel, especially when you watch Absolution and Code of Honor back to back like we all did. It sounds like this movie feels different.
Yeah.
I think all $8 million went to one explosion about halfway through the movie, and the rest of it they made with pocket change.
It's After Effects level, just like whatever standard bullet wound filter comes on that, just like a sticker.
Yes.
They stick onto
this
people.
looks worse than like the 2003 movies. So this one was very bad. Okay, let's just get through it.
Bad. What happened?
Code of Honor,
Go.
which sounds like it might be a military film in some way, is not. Steven Seagal is barely a character in it.
Is he even a character in it though?
Well, okay,
we'll get there.
Steven Seagal is the main character, not because he's on the screen the most or has the most lines or even has the most interesting story, but just because I don't think there is a single scene or even a single line of dialogue where a character is not talking about him.
Yeah.
Like, this is a movie where you barely see Seagal. I don't even think he talks for like the first half of this movie.
He doesn't.
He's barely
silent
on screen, but everybody is constantly talking about him and talking about how like nobody knows who he is and he's such a ghost and nobody knows about him, but everybody knows about him.
And by the end of the movie, they're wondering whether he even exists.
Truly. This is a man that we're going to talk about nonstop for an hour and 40 minutes or however long this thing took. But also, did he ever really exist in the first place? Steven Seagal is the Punisher. Like,
It's embarrassing. Can I just read one of the notes that I have?
yes.
The premise here could be interesting. I'm like writing this like an idiot. The premise here could be interesting. A trained soldier who fought overseas to protect his country, then when his family is killed in gang violence, come to the conclusion that the real danger is to America is at home, and so becomes a vigilante. Oh, that's the Punisher. It's literally the Punisher.
He plays Colonel Robert.
I realized it as I was writing it like a moron.
In your notes.
You can just feel when the realization happens in that notes.
Yeah.
It could be an interesting premise. It could be a really interesting premise for like a comic or like a movie or like a Netflix series or
Yeah.
So the movie starts off with him. There's a drug deal going on, and Seagal shoots all the people who are doing the drug deal, and then the police show up to investigate it. And so the police start to investigate it until all of a sudden this other guy shows up, who's not with the police. but he is like a former protege. Like he was with Seagal, and now he's like, oh, I need to help track him down. I need to stop him. Like, I don't approve of his methods. And you know what? That's literally the whole movie. Seagal shoots the drug deal. He blows up an exotic club, but he's like so perfectly blows it up to make sure that these two women, the only two strippers who are there on duty at the time working on the clock, don't die, but everybody else dies.
Even though, like, in the scene, you see like 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but
the text of the film is that he cares about women, but the actual film is that he does not.
Yeah. He just killed.
But the club was a place that distributed weapons and drugs in the city. Like it was the
yeah.
There was a reason he did it.
Kind of, as much as there's a reason anybody does anything.
Right. It was just saying he takes out a drug gang and then he blows up a club. Well, it's because it was like the home of the drug gang.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. And you kind of follow these two gals for like some of the movie. One of them ends up becoming like much more of a main character because she ends up like moving in with the guy that's investigating Seagal to like stay safe from Seagal. Even though they talk about how he specifically like, made this perfect explosion. Like if you wanted them dead, they'd be dead. And then they talk about how he's still like a danger to them.
Well,
it's really dumb.
It's because she left. It's because it's the whole. I really don't want to get into it, but there's a reason why they're after her, and it's a dumb reason. We'll get to it.
It's
just keep going.
Like that's what I'm saying. Yes, I understand. There's technically a reason. It's a very stupid reason, and none of them explaining the reason makes it make sense.
No.
Seagal just indiscriminately kills, people that he's taking revenge on for a while. He does a vigilante. There's this one newsman who keeps reporting on it, and he keeps talking about like, I'm an Emmy winning and a Peabody winning, like I'm the greatest journalist ever. But every time he introduces himself, his name is Jerry Simon, and I keep thinking it's going to be Jerry Seinfeld every time.
Yes.
So he's like, it's Jerry Simon, and it kept tripping me up. And he's like, "Ooh, this guy. I support this vigilante. He's doing good, and I'm gonna keep covering him, and I'm gonna have all the awards by the end of this."
He's a heavily biased news anchor, like reporting only very specific details.
Yeah,
which is why he's a target.
But this kind of keeps going on until, of course, they have the showdown, where finally this guy confronts Seagal, and he's like, "Ooh, you never knew how to like, check behind you, like, that's how I got you." And they're in this building together, and they're fighting until a helicopter shows up with like the police in it who have a gun aimed on Seagal. So Seagal blows the place up as the other guy escapes, and they're like, "Ooh, like there was only one body found, but neither of these men are alive," and it's really dumb. And this gal kind of likes the guy who is investigating the case, and she thinks he's dead, but maybe he's actually still alive. Maybe Seagal's character never existed in the first place. That's it. Code of honor.
Sucked.
This movie was 106 minutes long.
Of nothing.
This is like the longest of all of these movies we've seen so far, and it's the one that deserves it the least.
Like my whole thought is that Seagal wanted to be the Punisher and the guy who caught the Punisher at the same time. But you can't do that, and so he has to do like this psych out at the end of the movie. That maybe it was a Fight Club situation where you thought that one character was a character, but he was actually a different character the whole time.
Yeah.
Except it, like, if you try to sit down and figure out what parts of it were real and what parts weren't, unlike Fight Club, that's impossible.
Oh yeah, where Fight Club, you'll still find people pointing out to this day like little details that like help confirm this and prove this. This has absolutely none of that. There's no consistency. There's no thought into it. There's
absolutely no effort to make it work.
That anybody says.
So here's the thing: they portray there's Seagal, who is the vigilante taking out people he deems are bad people, and then there's the guy
who are like mostly like drug addicts and victims of crimes and things.
Yeah, he just like randomly just starts like shooting people who are not really like.
Well, they were just
like chilling.
They were drug dealers, the ones that were on the street.
Most of the people he kills in that scene are drug addicts, not dealers. He kills one drug dealer and like 4 drug addicts.
Yeah, that's true.
There is a really gross shot where this woman has like blood on her face from the guy that got shot next to him, and she's trying to smoke her crack pipe.
Yeah.
We're getting away from the whole... He's a vigilante that is not particularly good at determining who is good and who is bad, and he's taking it into his own hands. Half the police are saying we should just let this guy do his thing because he's taking out the bad guys for us, and then the other half of the police are saying you're an idiot, he's taking out innocent people too. So you have the guy who's investigating Seagal, and he's like one step ahead of the police inexplicably the entire time. And then by the end of the movie, like there's just a lot of back and forth. It's like supposed to be a cat and mouse. But by the end of the movie, there's this scene where the lead detective of the police has this realization and the camera is swirling around him. And I can't think of the movie, but I know that I've seen this before. Camera's swirling around him and he's having this realization. And then all of a sudden, for somehow, out of nowhere, this movie that has been for 80 minutes has this moment of like weird clarity where the production value seems 20 times what it was. The acting seems 20 times better than what it was. It almost seems like it was shot on a different day with a different director. I don't know. But this one brief moment was actually so interesting to me because this movie for 80 minutes flips on its head. And you have this moment where this camera is circling the lead investigator on the case. And he's like looking around and his eyes are darting all over the place. And he's having these flashbacks. And then all of a sudden, voice lines from earlier in the movie start playing as a background. And you just hear lines from the guy who was tracking Seagal, the cat and mouse guy. And you hear lines from the investigators, like kind of contradicting what he was saying. And it's I'm not going to describe it very well. The bottom line is he has these realizations that the Seagal and this guy tracking Seagal are actually the same person, like two personalities from the same person. You have the guy who is killing people almost at random, and the person investigating him, like by day, by night, they don't realize that they're different people, or they don't realize that they're the same person, but they're, different mindsets, whatever. And it almost starts to make sense because the guy investigating him is only ever shown during the day. He is looking at Seagal's sniper spot and finds his cigar butt, whatever, on the ground. And that's where Seagal was during the night. And almost all of the scenes are like that, where he is there during the day, but Seagal was there at night. They show a scene where they supposedly met together for the first time to talk face to face at a nightclub. And when they show that scene, when they're looking at it from the security cameras, the police are looking at the security cameras to watch that interaction go down. They can only see the guy who's tracking Seagal. They can't see Seagal, and it's supposed to be like a tricky thing. Like Seagal found the right table to have the right angle so that the camera wouldn't see him. And then the lead investigator has this realization, and it plays back that same footage, but from a different angle, just as a sort of, what am I trying to say? Like not a memory, but it's like, it's to show this realization, I guess, where he was sitting at the table alone. Okay. Just like talking to himself. And it was this weird, it was a genuine twist. Not that you didn't see it coming, but it was an actual twist in the movie that seemed so weirdly out of place for such a terrible movie. And then you jump right back into this movie that 20 minutes later, by the end of it, they're like, oh, psych, that didn't actually happen. They're actually two different people.
Okay. Here is why you are completely wrong.
What that was an honest to God spit take.
What the
That was amazing. I wish we recorded this and put it up on YouTube. That was amazing. I've never seen an actual spit take.
Why would you do this to me?
I've never seen an actual spit take. That was amazing.
See, I only had the slight tweak of Seagal, half of his assassinations happen during the day, so the whole day and night thing doesn't work. But I think Aaron has a whole other. He's ready to cook on
Okay, but they're never at the same place at the same time, day night, whatever. Maybe I'm thinking about the first one specifically, but they're never at the same place at the same time until when they are, and they're the only people there. There are no witnesses. No one else sees both of them at the same time.
The problem is not that they're never in the same place at the same time. It's that they're in different places at the same time. Many times throughout the movie. Like, the twist is physically impossible based on the timing that is given to us in the movie.
Okay, I'm not saying that it's a good or a well executed twist. I'm not saying we have the next M. Night Shyamalan over here, although he had some stinkers real early too. I'm just saying they had something. There was effort in a movie that presented itself to be premier trash for 80 minutes. All of a sudden, showed me some kind of promise. Showed me some kind of like thought behind the story. They didn't have the ability, or they didn't have the people, or they didn't have the money to get this idea out onto film until someone managed to figure it out, and then they ripped it off hands.
I think I think you're inadvertently making this movie sound more interesting than it actually is.
No, I was incredible. Maybe I am. But let me be clear, this was garbage. This was absolute trash. This is one of the worst things I've ever sat through, and I could not wait for it to be over. I don't know how many times I paused this to get up to do something else because I couldn't stand to sit through it. And then I had this one teeny tiny moment, this instant, this little flash for a brief, just maybe 2-second period where I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is actually trying to do something kind of clever. And then that was ripped, like physically ripped out of my brain, and it just made it that much worse, that much more frustrating because they ruined this teeny tiny little like flash of inspiration that they actually had for this otherwise absolute piece of garbage.
So like the scene that you're talking about, I think I get it. Like I guess I get it. But there's just one thing. There's one thing about that whole scene that really bothered me. Like when they're looking at the cops looking at the footage of Bill Porter. The character's name is Bill Porter, who's like tracking down Seagal. Right. And who might be the same character as Seagal, except you find out that like immediately after this reveal that they are actually different characters. Right. Like it doesn't actually matter. They are different characters. They're just not who you think they are. When they're doing that, there's one of the pieces of evidence that you brought up. Is that there's a video of him sitting at a table, apparently alone, who is supposed to be speaking with Seagal. You got water like all over your monitor too?
Yes, this is you. This is your fault.
Except, so like I think the one clever thing that the movie did was the scene that scene is referencing when Porter does this whole gun fight.
Yes.
While sitting in a chair.
Yes.
He can't get up out of the chair because he thinks there's a bomb strapped to the bottom. But he finds out at the end of the fight that there's not a bomb strapped to the bottom, that Seagal lied to him about it. That scene, that entire scene, the only cool moment in the whole movie, is completely ruined by the thought that Seagal's character doesn't exist.
Yeah. But it also, I mean, it kind of adds to it though, right? If he was actually, if you're going with the line that he doesn't actually exist, they're the same person. Yeah. If he was a physical entity that was actually there before what was his name, Porter there, he could have conceivably put a device under the chair. But if he got there and was just talking to himself, he wouldn't have strapped the bomb under his own chair. Yeah. But the imaginary person sitting across from him could have told him that. And he would have believed it, even though it wasn't there, because he didn't put it there. If anything, it just sort of adds to the thought that like they could have had something. And again, it sounds like I'm giving this more credit than it deserves. I want to be crystal clear. This was garbage. I'm just trying to pick the like teeny tiny light out of the needle in the haystack that gave me hope, but was then ripped away from me. And that's why I hate this so much.
Yeah. What, Zachary?
I just hate how dumb this movie is. Like, this is just your brain on Seagal, where Hans is like defending an interpretation of this movie to the two of us that the movie itself undermines like 4 seconds later.
That's like, why I'm so mad. You have to understand.
Is like, no, it can't be possible.
You have to understand. that's why I'm mad. Like they I get something.
It. That's what I'm saying. Is like you're like fighting. You're trying to make this one part interesting, and the movie's like, no, that wasn't interesting.
Exactly. That's why I'm mad. Like that's what I'm trying. That's what I want you to take away. That's what I want you to understand. Is that like this was terrible.
How dumb this movie is.
I tried so hard to pull the needle in the haystack. I wanted to pull the smallest bit of light out of this experience because it was so much darkness otherwise, and they ripped that away from me. Like Aaron, you said it. I don't remember how many movies ago that this movie hates you. Like, this
Yeah.
movie hates you and
Maximum
it wants to make you
conviction.
miserable. Yes, this movie hates me. Like, I can't describe to you how viscerally angry I was watching this, because I even put it in my notes. I was like, a twist? An actual twist? Like, they actually tried to do something clever. Maybe not original, but they tried to do
reversed
something
it
clever.
2 seconds after that scene, though.
Exact, and then they undermined it like right away, dude. Like, can you? Oh, I was so angry. I'm still so angry. Ugh.
Commit.
Similarly, I'm angry in like not exactly the same way, but in a very similar way because of that scene that Aaron described. Like, when we get to that scene and he's at this club and he's talking to Seagal, and Seagal's like, by the way, I put a bomb under your chair. And then, like, he also orchestrated it. So, like, these gang members that Seagal's trying to kill come in and start trying to kill that guy who, like, has the bomb under his chair. So the guy has to, like, get into a fight, but he can't, like, sit up. He, like, has to keep his, like, butt on the chair.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really fun premise. That's something that they would have, like, Jackie Chan do back in the 90s, and he would kill it. And this guy actually does better than, like,
does a pretty good job with it.
Pretty good with it.
Craig Schaefer,
he does,
who plays
like, the
Bill
physical
Porter,
action. Yeah.
does a pretty
He's
good job.
doing, like, he's obviously not doing it to, like, Jackie Chan levels, because only, like, Jackie Chan and, like, Michelle Yeoh could do it to, like, Jackie Chan levels. But, like, that's an interesting premise and executed fairly well. And then everything else about the movie, like, undermines it. It makes it, like, crappy. It makes even, like, the reveal that, there isn't actually a bomb, like, that's pretty, like, funny. Like, that's pretty decent. And then every other part of this movie just made me upset and made me mad and felt so cheap and, like, a waste of time and money. And
Also, I don't think I've ever seen another movie. I've never experienced this. I don't know how to put it, but I've never been in another situation where I have seen everyone in front of me look as though they desperately need to take a shit. Everyone in this movie was so, like, clenched the entire thing. They all look like they are ready to go take a poop. It was insane to me.
Interpretation of this movie. The whole time I was watching, it just felt like, again, like when you're watching The Room or something, and it just feels like these aren't like actors. There weren't like auditions. These are just like people that like the producers are able to scrape together, like family friends or something.
Yeah.
Like you have people like getting shot, and like the reaction like of the people around them are like, oh no, we need to run away.
It's like in Troll 2 where they just
one.
found a guy from like the local mental hospital and said, hey, do you want to be in a movie?
Yeah.
Like, I think these are just people they found like a day of, and they're just like, oh no, I'm scared. This is acting.
The best one is when there are two female cops who are handcuffing a pair of criminals, whatever, just generic bad guys, up against the wall. They're trying to put them in their cop car, and Seagal snipes the criminals as they're being put into the cop car.
They're already being brought to justice.
They're already headed to jail. And
no, because
Seagal
they wouldn't get
kills
real
them.
justice in there.
Seagal kills them as they're being put in the cop car, and both of the cops are like, I'm not going to be able to describe this. My description is not going to do it justice, but the way they talk, they're like, officer down, we need backup, repeat, backup, officer down. And it's like, okay, one, officer's not down. He killed the criminals. Like, that wasn't how it works. But also, they're like waving their guns wildly back and forth as though that's what they were told to do. Officer down, we need backup.
Oh my gosh. There's a scene where there's like this mob boss who's about to get taken off to jail. And there's like there are a bunch of like news reporters and stuff outside, like trying to interview him as he's like on his way to the cop car. And Seagal snipes him. He shoots him in the neck.
Yeah.
And, like, blah, and he dies. And there's blood
exactly what you're
everywhere.
about
And like
to
one of the
say.
cops gets blood all over her face. Like whatever. And so like, and then they like the camera zooms across the city to show where he was. And it's like 2 miles away and like around the corner. It was like a wanted shot. Like, did he curve the bullet?
I don't know how
There's
the best.
no way.
Like, I can't come up with the best words to back you up on this because you're so right, and it's not. It's like they did the. What is it? What was the movie? Limitless. It's like they did the Limitless zoom where it just like zooms across the entire city.
This was like a mid-2000s thing, though. Like,
yeah, but it was
aesthetic.
It was super fast, but because they couldn't zoom the amount of distance that they wanted, they did the Limitless thing where they like zoom across several different pieces of footage.
Yeah.
So it's like zoom the whole way really quickly across this city and then cut to another zoom across another city, and that's where you get the weird turn.
If you go to Google Earth and then you click on like the
you
street
just spam
view
forward really fast.
you hit forward on the street view and it like jumps forward by increments. It looks like that.
It does.
Well, but it's like whenever you do like 10 steps forward, 10 steps forwards, 10 steps forwards, 2 miles forward, because they don't have like the street view for it. It's like that.
And then they show him up on the rooftop, just like taking his face away from the scope of his rifle, and he doesn't have any lines. Like every time Seagal's on the move in shot for it's probably a good 2/3 of this movie. It's just the result of him having just taken this shot that killed a bunch of people, and then he like nods his head and then cuts away from him, and that's it. That's all you get.
I hated this movie so much.
But like
I said,
stupid.
I hated this movie, but very differently from the last movie that we watched. These are both like half a star movies for me, but that one felt like, I'm not gonna say competently made, but like I objected to the content more than the actual like production quality. This one I object more to the production quality than the actual content, because the content is just a rip off of The Punisher.
Yeah,
there
you know
are
what? Sure. Hey, if you're like an
yeah.
up and coming filmmaker, if you want to make like a rip off of The Punisher, go ahead,
Go for it.
That's fine.
That's
I
a
don't
good
object to
premise. Punisher's a good premise.
Why not? We should have more Punishers.
I think like this movie did have significantly fewer like gratuitous nudity scenes than the previous movies. It was less
it still
gross.
has like an extended scene at a strip club.
Yeah,
but
it was. I think it was less gross than the past few movies in that way.
I can't criticize because I literally did this like same exact thing. I can't even remember for what for like the Stone Cold Steve Austin movie, but it's
Maximum
like when the
Conviction.
bar is so low and you're like, the bar was slightly higher. You could almost trip over this bar now. When before you wouldn't even notice it on the ground, like stepping
Yeah.
over it.
I'm gonna send
This
you. I'm gonna
The
send you
bar's
a
ever so
picture.
slightly higher.
Yeah,
I'm gonna send you a picture. I need you to Zach, when you're editing this one, I need you to make sure this one goes in the show notes, because this is like critical.
Oh.
At one point, Porter takes the hard drive out of a computer and
just like wiggles it out of the computer.
Oh yeah. But credit to credit where it's due, I guess. They at least pulled a hard drive and not like some other random computer component and said that it was a hard drive. And then he does some like soldering on the back of it for no reason, and then plugs it into his computer to read the contents. Gloss over that. When he plugs it into his computer to read the contents, this, dear listener, please go look at the show notes and look at the link, because this image is everything. This tells you everything you need to know. Because instead of like in other Seagal movies, in any kind of professional movie, it's always some kind of overdone console, or I don't know, it's some weird terminal that's very green and looks very hackerish, so that you know that that's what they're doing. But in this one, they took a screenshot of the Windows File Explorer, specifically has to be from one of the editor's computers, because you can see folders under favorites for Creative Cloud and iCloud.
Nice.
And then in the address bar, it's the recycle bin that they took the screenshot in. And then on top of that, they pasted a bunch of hackerish code.
Fun.
In heavy, heavy, heavy air quotes. This gives you everything you need to know about the production quality of this garbage movie. I don't care if you know anything about computers or you know everything about computers. You can look at this and you can see instantly that, oh yeah, no, this was trash.
And like the prop knives there are multiple knife fights in this movie. The prop knives that they use are just like very obviously made of rubber.
They wiggle.
Oh, and oh my, we have come back to the, if you thought we had bad knife fights before in past Seagal movies, we have some truly atrocious knife fighting going on here.
It's worse than the one in Under Siege 2, at the very
Please
end.
give me Under Siege 2 knife fight again.
Dude, I
gosh.
thought
I'll
that
even
was
take
the
Under Siege
worst.
1 knife fight scene.
I thought that was the worst knife fight I had ever seen in my life of watching movies with knife fights in them.
It was up to that point.
It was up to that point, but
Code of
oh
Honor
my
came out in
goodness,
2016.
we had so much room to go downhill, and I did not appreciate what I had when I had it. That's disgusting to hear me say that, but oh my goodness.
It's bad. It's
So I just shared a screenshot whenever they pulled the personnel file on Robert Aaron Sykes, the character that Seagal plays in this movie, where it says he's 6'4" and 230 pounds.
Well, so that was supposed to be his like military history, but it's a picture of him from Under Siege.
yeah. Yes.
Like they lifted a picture of him from the 90s in another one of his movies.
Yes. That's the level of quality we're dealing with here, folks.
I like that it's a digital image, but they like have a paperclip like over the photo of him.
Oh, of course. I had forgot about that.
That part stuck out to me. This movie was very bad. It was very cheaply made. It was a waste of time. It was so much of a waste of time. It was so long. Like, again, when I say so long, I mean like an hour 46 or something.
It felt
compared
way
to
longer than
every other
that.
movie we've watched, like 16 minutes longer than any of these other movies are. And like, I swear at least like an hour and 20 minutes longer than it needed to be. Like, nothing happens for most of this movie.
Yeah.
Nothing. Not a thing. It's so boring.
It was boring. It was boring. It was frustrating. And then they tried to do something clever, and then they rip it away from you. Fell flat on their face. They rip it away from you, and it made me so just unbelievably angry. I've been mad watching a lot of these movies, but this one takes the cake by far. It's so frustrating.
Sucked. Half a star. I don't even... Oh, wait. While I was watching, I did have a quote that stuck out, and now I can't even remember it.
I have
one.
I have one.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
You can't check your 6, just like old times.
What's the matter, man? I caught you slipping.
That may be familiar to listeners of Stephen See It All.
Mine is Porter's talking about Seagal's character, and he's talking to the police, and he says, "I'll send over his file, whatever's not classified, but it won't matter. He will have already changed appearances."
What?
As if Seagal has changed his appearance.
Again, they're trying to do this thing where
Ever.
he's like a ghost. You can't catch him.
Well, this isn't my favorite line, but I guess, the closest thing is the fact that they talk about, oh, he's perfectly trained in like urban and all kinds of warfare. Like he can disappear into a crowd. He's impossible to see. And this is undermined because literally the next thing is like this woman saying like, yeah, I remember seeing a really scary man at that club before it blew up.
Yeah.
Like a really distinct, very noticeable, like scary man.
Yes.
And she's talking about Seagal.
Well, because
he is not a ghost. He does not slip into a crowd.
He sat in the back of the club by himself, smoking cigars, and not drinking, and just like staring.
Apparently not
straight
tipping.
ahead. Yeah, and not tipping.
But they also that was another one of those flashback scenes where, like, in the beginning of the movie, you see Seagal sitting in that seat smoking and not tipping, but then during the lead investigator's like realization, they jump to that same exact scene, but it's Porter sitting in the chair smoking, and it's like they almost had something. They were so close.
Well, I have in my notes.
They threw it away.
I have in my notes. LOL. I was wondering how Seagal was going to survive the movie because he's the villain throughout the whole movie. And so, like, he has to die here, right? And I said, it's because the movie was lying to us the whole time.
But I mean, that would have been okay if they actually followed through on that concept. That would have worked.
They just get to say, "Oh, psych, he's actually the good guy and the guy that you've been watching the whole time." Like, you get to watch Seagal act as the bad guy. Like, Seagal gets to play a bad guy, but then partway through the movie gets to pretend that he was the good guy the whole time and gets to kill the character that was him. Also, in like the fight between him and Porter, they meet on a rooftop, and then like partway through the fight, Seagal just like says "psych" and then runs away and jumps through a skylight, and I laughed so hard.
Okay, but hear me out. This is, again,
I laughed so hard at that.
I know I sound like I'm giving it too much credit, but the way I took that, he jumped through the skylight because a helicopter with a searchlight was coming over.
Yes.
In my mind, that was, if they were the same person, if it was multiple personality disorder or something like that, that was his excuse for getting that character off of the roof because the helicopter is only going to see one man on that rooftop. Like, if they had followed through with that concept, it could have worked, but they didn't. Because, and we've said pretty often about how they threw that concept away. I don't think we said how they threw that concept away. Have we?
I don't think so. I don't even know if I can identify it. If you can identify it, go for it.
So the whole premise, but like at the very end, it's a fight between Porter and Seagal, but the idea is that they're the same person. It's like an internal conflict. He's fighting with himself. That sounds like I'm giving this so much more credit than it's due, but that's supposed to be the idea. That's what they're trying to make you believe, and that's why I'm saying like they tried to do some kind of creative work to make it seem that way if they could follow through with it. Anyway, the fight ends with Seagal blowing up the building that they're in, and Porter like runs out the door, and you don't see what happens to any of them. The building blows up, and it's a cut to the police bringing a body in like under a sheet out of the building. And they say, because the woman that Porter was like taking care of, her son like picked up his baseball glove that was supposed to be his son's baseball glove at one point earlier in the movie. So when the body is brought out in front of this woman, the police say he was the same person. And then she says, I don't think so. And they say, you don't believe me? And she says, no. So she turns and walks away, and they don't actually show you who was under the sheet. She turns and walks away, and her son is holding the baseball glove that he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Basically saying that the guy, Porter, actually got out of there and was able to give him the glove, and Seagal's the one under the sheet. So they threw the whole thing that they had built up in the trash.
This movie sucked. Half a star.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Instead
I'm
of this,
mad. So mad.
Instead of this, you should
Wait,
watch.
what are your stars? Did y'all say stars?
I said 1.5
Half a star.
stars on my letterbox.
1.5?
1.5.
Aaron.
After talking about it, I think I would bring that down, but that's what I put
Thank you.
immediately after watching it.
And Hans, what did you say?
Half.
Thank you. Just the voice of sanity, voice of reason in this call.
Easily a half. I feel like I'm talking way too much about this piece of garbage, but I need you to understand why I'm so angry.
It's really, really bad.
It's so bad.
So what would you watch instead?
I would watch season 2 of Netflix's Daredevil, was where they introduced John Barenthal's Punisher.
Yes.
Because they execute on the entire premise of this movie way, way better in that season of Netflix's Daredevil, which you can now watch on Disney Plus, apparently.
I would just have to add the caveat: you can watch season 2 of Daredevil, which is actually season 0.5 of Punisher.
Yeah.
And you just have to kind of be okay with the fact that like the actual scenes with Daredevil himself and Matt Murdock kind of suck. Like he's just kind of crappy that season, and because it's really
one,
the
Matt
Punisher
Murdock
season.
is so good though.
Amazing, perfect, like just fantastic television.
Yeah.
And then season 2, you're like, oh, the parts with the Punisher are pretty good, and the parts with Matt Murdock, the Daredevil, are actually not that good.
Yeah, Punisher kind of steals the entire show.
Yeah.
In season 2.
I would say you could watch the Punisher season 1, which follows that.
I don't think it's as good though.
I don't think it's as good, but it's pretty solid. You get some, more Punisher action. I want to say, wait, his hacker friend is the is he the guy from the Bear? Is he like cousin from the Bear? I'm like, I have a picture of him in my head. I need to actually like see his face to like know if this is yes. The guy that plays Micro is Ebon Moss-Bachrach, who is in The Bear. Oh, you should watch The Bear. Season 1 and 2, both fantastic. Perfect. Especially when you get to the Bear season 2, the Christmas episode, amazing. It is like peak television. But yeah, you can watch The Punisher, even if season 1 and season 2 aren't quite as good as like, his
he
first
was in
appearance in Daredevil.
Andor
They're still pretty
as well.
solid.
Evan Moss Bachrach was in Andor.
This guy has an interesting career.
That's why I recognize
Hans. Yeah, he plays. Actually, my fan theory that I like is that his character from The Punisher is like completely not like either of those other characters, but his character in The Bear and his character in Andor are like pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just funny that when you're watching Andor and it's like literally just like space Chicago in like. This is just a dude from Space Chicago. That is 100% like what he is.
Space Chicago.
Yes, because he is just his character from The Bear, but in space. Hans, what would you watch instead?
2016's Shin Godzilla. It's a wild ride.
Or Godzilla -1. And or Godzilla -1. Watch Godzilla -1. Godzilla -1
I haven't
is
seen
really
that
good.
yet. I need to go see that.
Godzilla
They're
-1
bringing it.
really
It was like so. It was so successful in the U.S. So much more successful than they had anticipated. That they're as of last weekend, they're bringing it to an even wider range of theaters across the U.S.
Ooh, good.
Yeah, it was one of those weird situations where we watched it before it hit IMAX. Like
Yeah.
they didn't do
Wow.
IMAX opening weekend because
Yeah.
Beyonce had all the IMAX theaters opening weekend, but it got IMAX like its second and third weekends.
And to be honest, I would not
Watch
say
Godzilla
no.
-1. I don't know if it's still out when this podcast will hit the airwaves, but
I wouldn't say no to going to see it in IMAX to see it
you
again.
can
'cause
even
it was
watch the Mark
such
Wahlberg Punisher movie.
It was a good movie. Not the Mark Wahlberg
like
Punisher
this.
movie,
Okay.
but
Code of Honor, more like you can't even do anything funny with this title because the title of this movie just sounds like one of those fucking like iPhone games that's like meant to sound like Call of Duty, and it has a picture of a guy with a gun, and it's like instead of Call of Duty, it's like Duty of Honor, Code of Kills. Like it just has like the most generic like nothing name of a movie. You can't even make a funny pun based off of it.
I mean, like, yeah, I guess.
let's just say that next week, I believe, if I'm not wrong, we have Sniper Special Ops.
Let's hope Sniper Special Ops like brings us back up. I'm feeling this was a rough double feature.
And it's
Like,
three-
rough.
sucked.
It's 3 words too. Just Sniper Special
Sniper
Ops. There's
Special
no
Ops.
there's no like gap in that title. It's just
Sniper Special Ops.
Sniper Special Ops.
I
There's
feel
no
so
comma,
bad that I'm
there's
like
no
nostalgic for 90s and early 2000s.
Oh,
Like,
I've been thinking that so often, and it
I'm the
sickens me.
I'm so sad.
I'm the only person in this call who has not rewatched a previous Seagal movie,
Yeah.
and I'm honestly scared. Like, if I watch like Marked for Death, like I'm probably gonna have a reaction, and I don't know what that reaction is, but I don't want it. I'm scared. I don't even know how it'd feel if I rewatch Under Siege 2. I think my mind would shatter into a million pieces. If I watched
You think this is getting shot? This isn't getting shot.
hell, even The Foreigner, even if we're in like the early 2000s instead of the late 2000s, there is a weird nostalgia there for these very terrible movies. Like, this movie is the worst movie I've ever seen. Zach from earlier this year, you did not know what you were saying.
A
knew
sweet
so
summer
little.
child. You had no idea how bad
Above the
these
were
would
Law
so
get.
is
innocent.
like a 4-star, like solid contender for movie of the year compared to what we're watching now.
It's horrid. Horrid.
Just
How bad things have
imagine
gotten.
if we were coming into this recording and we're like, yeah, he was like killed but not killed, and he was in a coma, and there's these 2 nurses, and he like does like, you know, he puts needles in him, and he like starts like, you know, training himself. Like, I miss it. I do.
I can't believe it.
I hated it, and I would still hate it, but I miss it.
It's like so in the Old Testament when when the Israelites are freed from their slavery in Egypt, they go out into the desert and they're like starving to death, and they complain to God, and they say, you know, God, why did you take us out of our slavery and just so that we can starve to death in this desert? And he tells them, things are eventually going to get better. I know they're really bad now, but things are going to eventually get better. I think we're in that desert right now. We're yearning for the slavery which we experienced in Egypt.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's exactly what this is like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Like
I
in the
don't think
book-
it's gonna get better.
Like in the book of Numbers. Well, it's going to get better when it's over. It didn't get better for the Israelites until they left the desert.
So you're saying like the land of milk and honey is just
Being
not
done.
beyond the law, but like the second
Beyond
credits roll
the
on
law.
Beyond the law. Like when you just like close out of that browser.
Yeah,
window
beyond
for
the law
Beyond
is
the
our
Law.
crossing of the Jordan.
Hey,
That's-
I have good news for you. We have 10 more. Sniper Special Ops,
That's
to
not
Beyond
good
the
news.
Law. 10. That's it. That's all we got
That's-
left.
Wow. That sounds like so we've done
That's a lot
39
of
of these. So like 10 isn't that many. But if they're as
Remember
bad
what it
as
felt
they
like to
are
be at less
now,
than
Hey,
halfway.
we are, nice even numbers. We're 4/5 of the way through.
I don't even remember what it felt like to be like 5 movies into this. That was a different man.
again, we're doing the supersize me of movies.
We are.
I would much
It's
rather
not about
eat
the food.
McDonald's
It's
for
about
every
how
time.
the food affects us.
Yeah.
I would much rather eat McDonald's for every single meal of my life than watch a single one.
It's probably
of
better
these
for
movies.
you.
It is.
There's gonna have to be during our like finale episode. There's gonna have to be some kind of mental health recap. How
Yeah,
has
do
this
we-
affected us?
Do we
over
have to
the
hire a
past year?
psychologist to
Yeah, we're
come
gonna
in
have
and
to bring
like
a
help
trained
us out here?
professional.
Yeah.
I saw. I was listening to the official Mission Impossible podcast, in the episode when they had like Simon Pegg on there,
Yeah.
and they were talking about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
So
And they're
good.
talking about like in that scene where he's like disarming the bomb and it's like asking him questions and he has to like answer them honestly.
Yeah.
And it's something like, so in the movie, in the final edit, it ends up being like, are you like afraid of death? And he has to answer yes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the original line was like, they wanted to make it more explicit that Benji's like experiencing like PTSD. So the line was like, have you ever thought about like harming yourself? And he has to answer like, honestly, yes. And it's like way more brutal. Like, that just like hurts.
It was
That
already
sinks you.
brutal.
It's
Yeah.
like brutal, but the
Yeah.
fact that it's like explicitly like, do you have thoughts of like harming or killing yourself? And
Yeah.
he says yes, and then like the bomb's like, yes, that's true. And it didn't test well with audiences. They didn't like that, so
No.
they changed it to just like,
Uh-uh.
are you afraid of dying or something? I can't remember
Yes.
what the exact
That
change
would
was.
test much better with me.
But I'm just like, ooh, that's daring. That's
Probably-
like, I feel like we need
yeah.
to have like, you started off where you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna watch these bad movies with friends, and then we're getting to the end here. We have 10 movies left, and we're like, we should bring in a trained counselor who will just ask each of us, like, do you have thoughts about harming yourself? Like after watching all of these Steven Seagal movies.
Well,
like,
it's like in Super Size Me, he brings in those doctors to like check in with him every now and again.
yeah, that's our problem is we didn't have that.
We
Well, we-
didn't have a baseline. There was no control.
No.
We don't have the people coming in being like, bro, your kidney is just begging for help.
I can hear your kidneys screaming.
I hear them churning through all of the sodium from these fries. I can, like, if you hold your ear up to it, you just hear it rattling in there. That's like what these movies are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Oh.
your liver is about to burst.
God, I hope. New year, new us, same.
Ugh. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Oh, I forgot to say it, but I've been really enjoying all of the validation that I've been getting from my Titanic views.
No, wrong.
Everybody's been agreeing with me. Everybody's been saying, my
Nope.
family, friends, everybody who's
Nope.
talked to me about it says, you actually had a really good point there. I've
Nope.
felt so validated.
Mm-mm.
Zach
Wrong.
seems to be the only one who disagrees.
I am a professional hater, born and bred and accredited in the state of in the tri-state area, at least. All right, should we end this?
Yeah.
I wish we could.
Garbage movie. Okay, are we gonna stop our recording at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Give us a countdown.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
That means one of us has to die.
Aaron just said, now that I stopped my recording, I can say code of honor more like chode of goner. He didn't want you to hear that. He didn't want it to be known.